Good morning to all of you. Children, today we are going to study four most important topics of the first chapter. They are Earth Summit 1992, Sustainable Development, Resource Planning, and Steps of Resource Planning in India. Rio de Janeiro Earth Summit 1992. The summit was held in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil in 1992, where more than 100 nations of the world participated in the summit. The summit was convened for addressing urgent problems of environmental protection and socio-economic development at the global level. The assembled leaders signed the Declaration on Global Climatic Change and Biological Diversity. The Rio Convention endorsed the Global Forest Principles and adopted Agenda 21 for achieving sustainable development in the 21st century. Now understand what is sustainable development and what is the Agenda 21. So, what is sustainable development? Sustainable development or sustainable economic development means development should take place without damaging the environment, and development in the present should not compromise with the needs of the future generation. So such type of development is called sustainable development. It takes place through better allocation of the resources or better resource planning within the country or the region. The next most important declaration of the Earth Summit was Agenda 21, which was signed by the 100 signatories countries of the world in Rio de Janeiro 1992. It aimed at achieving global sustainable development. It is an agenda to combat environmental damage, poverty, disease through global cooperation on common interests, mutual needs, and shared responsibilities. One major objective of Agenda 21 is that every local government should draw its own local Agenda 21. It means every country, every state, every individual community can have their own local agenda to protect the environment. Children, after understanding the Earth Summit, let us now discuss about resource planning and what are the different strategies of resource planning in India. What is resource planning? First, understand what is planning. Planning is an strategy for the better development of the resources. So, resource planning is technique or skill of proper utilization of resources. It means when we allocate the resources judicially, we call it resource planning. There are three steps of resource planning in India. First is identification and listing of resources, that is surveying, mapping, etc. Second is planning for exploitation, that is development of a planning structure with suitable technology, skill, and institutional setup. And the third is matching resource development program with overall national development plans. It means the third step becomes very important because it assesses the environmental impact assessment. So it is called EIA, that is environmental impact assessment. It means after completion of the project, how the environment is going to be affected or unaffected, this we are discussing and assessing in resource planning, that is strategies of resource planning in India. We are going to study two most important questions, that is why do we need to conserve resources, and second question, what methods or measures can be taken to conserve resources. So let us understand the first question. We need to conserve resources because resources are not found everywhere. They are unevenly distributed. It means they are decentralized. Second point, Resources are limited. Many of the resources are non-renewable. It means they are exhaustible. Resources should be conserved for reducing all kinds of pollutions, that is air, water and soil pollutions. Next point, resources are also conserved for sustainable development. And the last, conservation is needed to protect our natural heritage. Now the next question, methods or measures to conserve resources. First point, wastage, misuse and overuse of resources should be avoided. Renewable resources should be used more, that is solar power, wind power, etc. Older technology should be replaced with newer and modern and efficient technology. It reduces pollution. Next, awareness should be created among the people to conserve resources. Next point, government should pass strict laws for establishment and location of industries, that is industries must be established away from the residential areas. Next point, used item should be recycled using new technology. We have studied 3 R's, that is reduce, reuse and recycle. We are going to follow the same for the conservation of resources. Children, next we are going to study the land use pattern of India. So what is land use pattern? Land use pattern is the scientific utilization of the available land for various purposes. India has total area of 3.28 million square kilometer. How we are utilizing this limited land available for the country is called the land use pattern. So let us see the percentage of plains, that is 43%, mountains 30% and plateaus 27%. Plains are those regions which are mainly used for agriculture and residential uses, while plateaus are rich in minerals and the mountains are the abode of flora and fauna, that is plants and animals. So how we have utilized this available land, this we are going to study in the topic land use pattern. There are 5 categories of land use. They are forest, land not available for cultivation, other uncultivated land, fallow land, net sown area. So land not available for cultivation includes barren land, wasteland, land which is used for building roads, parks, factories, etc. Second is fallow land, is that land which is left uncultivated by the farmer for 2 to 5 years to regain fertility. Farmers leave some land to give rest to the land. Lands are also left fallow due to low rainfall, lack of capital or seeds, etc. Fallow land for 1 or less than 1 year is called current fallow. If land is left fallow for more than 1 but less than 5 years is called as other fallow land. Next is net sown area. Net sown area is the actual land on which agriculture is done. Some parts of net sown area is used more than one time in a single agricultural season. When this land is added with net sown area, it is called gross sown area or gross cropped area. So children, in this topic we studied the areas which we have covered under land use pattern, that is forested area, net sown area, land not available for cultivation, etc. Children, this pie chart is showing you the land use pattern of 1960-61 and 2008 and 9. By comparing the two pie charts, we will understand the merits and demerits of the present land use pattern of India. So you will see the changes in the figure given in net sown area, forested land, areas not used for cultivation, barren lands, etc. So let us have a look. As you see in the figure, net sown area has increased since 1960-61. Previously it was 45.26%, now it is 46.24%. Similarly, forest covered area was 18.11% and now it is 22.78%. Barren land was 12.01%. Now it has gone down to 8.61%. It is one of the merit of the land use pattern that we have reclaimed the barren land under agriculture or some other activities. Next is cultivated wasteland. Earlier it was 6.23%, now it is 4.17%. It has also reduced. It means this is also plus point or merit in the land use pattern. So let us note down what are the merits and demerits of the land use pattern of India. Now let us understand the merits of the land use pattern. First point, India has the largest net sown area in the world. Second point, the forest covered area has increased. Now it is 22.78%. We have already studied. Next is the percentage of fallow land, wasteland, barren land, etc. have decreased. Next, although the percentage of pasture land has decreased, India is able to maintain its animal husbandry through agricultural fodder. It means agricultural husk is used as fodder in our country. Last point, development in the field of irrigation technology is rapidly changing the land use pattern of India. This is also one of the merit of the land use pattern. Now let us have some demerits of the land use pattern of India. High percentage of net sown area is the indicator of developing economy where large number of people are dependent on agriculture. This is one of the drawback. It means this percentage 46.24% net sown area is indicating that maximum population is dependent on agriculture for its livelihood. Second point, the forest covered area must be 33% of the total geographical area. It means this is also demerit. There is overburden of animal husbandry on agriculture. It means agriculture is also getting affected due to lack of pasture land. Next point, the percentage of wasteland, fallow land, barren land, etc. must be put to economic uses. It means their percentage must be reduced. And the last point, the unsurveyed territories of India should be put under uses. For example, in the northeastern states, in the Himalayan states, there are number of regions which are still unsurveyed and not put under the land use pattern. So children, we have studied merits and demerits of the land use pattern of India. Children, now we are going to study soils in India. We will go through meaning, origin, factors affecting soil formation, its profile, classifications, etc. So let us start with the new topic, soils. Soil is the uppermost unconsolidated material of the earth, rich in minerals and humus. The process of soil formation is called pedogenesis and the study of soil is called pedology. So when we define soil, we write that the uppermost layer of the earth, rich in minerals and humus and especially loose in nature, is called soil. Children, there are 5 main factors which interplay in soil formation. They are parent material, time, climate, relief and organisms. So let us understand one by one. The first factor is parent material. Parent material, it means the type of rock which is present in the area, which has different structure, texture, composition, color, etc. So by weathering of such rocks will give origin to the same type of soil which bear the characteristic features of the parent rock. For example, Maharashtra has large deposition of basalt rock. It is black in color, so the soil is black soil. Tamil Nadu, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, etc. have large area under old igneous and metamorphic rocks which are rich in iron. So weathering of such rocks gives origin to the red soil which is red in color, due to presence of iron oxide. Factor is time. Soil can take many years to form. Younger soils have some characteristics from their parent material, but as they age, the addition of organic matter, exposure to moisture, and other environmental factors may change its features. With time, they settle and are buried deeper below the surface, taking time to transform. Eventually, they may change from one soil type to another. For example, loamy soil. Loamy soil actually is the soil which has balanced quantity of silica, sand, clay, chalk and humus. It develops after a long period of time. Such soils are highly fertile and suitable for the cultivation of all the crops. The next most important factor behind formation of soil is climate. Climate is the most important factor which determines the formation of soil. It has number of components such as temperature, rainfall, fog, frost, humidity, etc. Through these components or elements, climate acts through physical, chemical and biological weathering. The rocks are disintegrated into soil through frost action, temperature action, oxidation, carbonation, solution, hydration, etc. All biological actions are the result of climate, which disintegrates the rocks into soil. Thus, climate becomes the most important factor behind soil formation. The next most important factor behind formation of soil is relief. This relief refers to the landscape position and its slope. Landscape position means the position of mountain, plateaus, plains, etc. whether it is steeper or has uniform slope. Steep slopes have rapid erosion through running water. It cuts down the relief or slope deeply and gives formation to soil, while gentle slopes or flat plains have poor soil formation. The soil which is present in the plain is the result of erosion caused by rivers and running water from the mountains. So, steepness of the land greatly determines the formation of soil. The next most important factor behind formation of soil is the work of organisms. Organisms provide humus to the soil. The decomposition of dead plants and animals, work of fungi, bacteria, insects, earthworms, etc. add fertility to the soil. Microorganisms also help with nutrients and mineral cycling and chemical reactions. Thus, organisms provide nitrogen, phosphorus and humus to the soil. They are the most important factors behind soil formation. Then now we are going to study classification of soil. The first classification is on the basis of zonal division, and we classify it into three types: zonal, intrazonal and azonal soil. So you see in central Maharashtra where black soil is found, that area is covered with basalt rock. So by the weathering of basalt there has been formation of black soil. So black soil will become example of zonal soil. We also call it in situ soil because it has origin at the place where its parent rock is found. Our next category is azonal soil. Azonal soil is transported soil and it is deposited by the work of river and wind action. Since it is transported from one place to another, we call it azonal soil. Between the margin of azonal and zonal soil, the soil which develops, we call it intrazonal soil. It means it has the characteristic features of both zonal soil and azonal soil. The next classification is light soil and heavy soil. So by the figure it is clear that light soil is light in color and heavy soil looks heavy or darker in color. Light soils are those soils which have 60% sand, 20% clay and rest other materials, while heavy soils are those soils which have 60% clay, 20% sand and rest other materials. It means both the soils have origin in two different climatic conditions. Like light soil is found in Rajasthan, parts of Gujarat, while heavy soil is found in the plains of Bihar, central Maharashtra, etc. So both the soils are suitable for the cultivation of different types of crops. For example, light soil supports cultivation of millets and groundnuts, while heavy soil supports cultivation of rice, jute, sugarcane, etc. Now let us understand what is loamy soil. So loamy soil is that soil which has balanced percentage of sand, silt, silica, chalk and humus. It means this type of soil is suitable for the cultivation of all the types of crops, and it has all the characteristic features to be the best soil. So as you see in the figure, sandy soil is not suitable for cultivation. Silty soil is also not suitable for cultivation. Clay soil is suitable for the cultivation of certain crops, while loamy soil is the best soil suitable for the cultivation of all the types of crops. Children, in this figure you see the three main components, sand, silt and clay. If we add humus and lime, then we get loamy soil. So I think loamy soil is clear to all of you. We can call it sandy loamy when the percentage of sand is maximum. We will call it clayey loamy when the percentage of clay will be maximum. So whether it is clayey loamy or sandy loamy, in all the cases it is suitable for the cultivation of different types of crops. So children, we have covered number of topics in our second video, right from Rio Summit till different types of soils based on zonal divisions. So see you in the next video with another interesting topic, that is major types of soils in India. Thank you all of you.